and then you encounter one and you watch it merge, and then you're like, oh, this is awful. I'm about to get my ass handed to me.
Think of Polish games, you kind of think of The Witcher, which obviously isn't about Poland.
Yeah.
It's like, wasn't Kojima saying recently, like most big games just kind of all play the same?
Everything looks the same these days.
Radio Times does gaming.
Yes, Radio Times does gaming. My name is Rob Lean. I'm the gaming editor at Radio Times.
And I'm Alex Raisbeck, and I'm the gaming writer at Radio Times.
And Alex, I've tentatively titled this episode Alex's Polish Adventure.
Yes, I went to Poland.
You did. Why did you go to Poland?
Well, usually when I've been to Poland in the past, it has been for leisure, but this time it was for work, if you can really describe it as work. I went to go and play Cronos The New Dawn.
Which is the new game from
Bloober Team, fresh off Silent Hill.
Yeah.
Now that they're good and everyone likes them suddenly.
And so tell us a little bit about the vibe of the event. It sounds like one of the more deranged press events, which we always love to hear about.
Yeah, so I mean, most press events, for those unaware, you kind of turn up and you play the game for a bit and then they free you. With this one, it was very specific. So the game is set in Krakow or it's inspired by Nowa Huta, which is this Cold War era model city. And so naturally, they took us to the Cold War era model city, and the event took place inside the administrative building of the steelworks. And we went in, we played the game for a bit, and then we were taken on an entire tour of the two administrative buildings, which involved going into terrifying tunnels underground that are full of like I mean, it's essentially just a museum of Cold War era stuff. Everything is as it was in the 80s and the 70s, and yeah, it was really interesting. It's the kind of thing that you don't really get going to many of these events, and it really, I think, sells the vibe of the game, knowing that it's a real place and it's all based on like real Polish history. I thought it was really interesting.
Nice. And in amongst this, you've got a guy in like, I don't know how to describe it, like a spacesuit or like a diving suit.
Yeah, there's like a big iron bloke who, so he's the traveller, and he works for essentially this organisation who, in this post-apocalyptic world
that we live in,
yeah, or that we may one day live in, he is going out into this world and he's locating essentially the spirits of people who were killed by the change, this cataclysmic event that took place in the 80s in this world. And once he finds the area or the place where this has happened, they have to sort of go back in time to the 80s before the change happens, this event. And the way it's phrased is extract them. Now, they very cleverly ended the preview just before extracting the first person, which, you know, on their part was clever. From my point of view, what the hell? Like, I want to extract this old man, which is strange out of context. And it's kind of strange in context, really. But yeah, it's a really interesting vibe that the whole game has got, because you are going through essentially what is Krakow, and there's loads of hints and letters and posters and things that hint to, they sort of tell you about the people that lived there before and their relationships and things, and you can almost watch how the change unfolds day to day, where so-and-so is ill and so-and-so has been forced to quarantine, and there's like a father who's unable to see his children because he's ill, and he's just waiting like to die essentially in this room and hoping that his children are all right. And yeah, it's a really interesting way of doing it, because there are no other characters that you're talking to. You are just alone. So you do kind of get to know these people that do exist in the game, or did exist in the game, in a way that I think is really interesting. They've done really well on it.
So when I first saw the trailer for it, I kind of thought it looked like a kind of Dead Space kind of vibe, you know, the big iron bloke running around, because there are what I thought to be zombies, but it sounds like there may be some kind of creepier creature than that.
Yeah, so it is very much that kind of survival horror. Like, if you've played a survival horror before, you kind of know what you're getting. But so what happens with the change, this event, is that people get infected and they turn into these monsters called orphans. The core mechanic of the orphans, I think, is really interesting, where it's plastered all over the promo material, this tagline, "Don't let them merge." And is that merging is that core mechanic where if you kill one of these orphans, another one, you kill an orphan, another orphan will come along, there's weird tentacles, you know what orphans are like.
Yeah.
Comes along with his weird tentacles and it absorbs the dead one and powers up. And when I was playing it and they explained this, I was like, oh, that doesn't sound too bad. And then you encounter one and you watch it merge, and then you're like, oh, this is awful. I'm about to get my ass handed to me. And yeah, it's a really interesting mechanic because it adds a real like tactical element to the gameplay that I think a lot of survival horrors don't really have, where you're just kind of going through, you're shooting everything, you're conserving ammo and stuff. Whereas with this, there were like a few times where you enter a room and it's very obviously set up in a way that you are going to have to stop these things from merging, where you kill one and if you don't have like gas to light it on fire and destroy the body, then these two orphans come from different sides of a room and you kind of have to prioritize, you know, do you kill one of them? Do you try and kill both? Do you run away and like find somewhere safer to take them out? And I really enjoyed the like strategic element of it, where the first time I did that, I was completely overwhelmed and had no idea what I was doing. And then when I went back, I was like stood outside the door planning how I was going to take on this particular encounter. And yeah, it's something that even like outside of horror games that you don't get a lot of, where you really have to think out your strategy before going into this, especially once you consider like you don't have a huge amount of ammo. I was running out of ammo constantly. And at this point in the game, I only had one gun as well. So if you miss your shots, then you are kind of attempting to punch these things to death, and it doesn't really work.
In that situation you described, when you've kind of got two coming at you, what was your technique when you finally got it?
My technique was I noticed which one appeared first, and I kind of waited until I did a bit of damage and then waited until it got close enough to the other body before I killed it. And then I was able to destroy both bodies at once. And then I ran away and then found somewhere safer to take out the other one because I didn't have that much ammo left. And yeah, it was like really, I thought you were going to be able to cheese it quite easily by like luring things away. But the way the AI is done and the way they're placed in the levels is very purposefully done so that you will have to engage with this mechanic. You can't just avoid things merging. You know, you are confronted with it, you are forced to deal with it. And I think that's, a really interesting way of doing it.
It is quite rare that like a game mechanic comes up, and especially in like a big, I don't know if you'd call it AA or AAA kind of game, when it's like, oh, I haven't seen this a million times before. It's like, wasn't Kojima saying recently, like most big games just kind of all play the same?
Everything looks the same these days.
But that's really cool to have like a unique mechanic in there. It does remind me a bit of in The Last of Us 2, they have the Rat King, who's like a bunch of zombies merged together, but you don't see it merge. It's just like you just find like it's been sat in this basement for ages. But that sounds really cool. And you got a decent amount of time with it, right?
Yeah, I played a couple of hours of it up until the point where you would extract the first person. And yeah, I think I'd say it's really like very solid. I don't know if I played enough to really talk about how the gameplay differs from other things. I would say that, like I said before, it's very familiar if you've played other survival horrors, which is by no means a bad thing. It does it very well. Like, it's very, very competent. And I think for me personally, what really drew me in was the world and that kind of story and exploring those ideas more. Because I also did an interview with a couple of the developers, and they were saying that the game is very heavily influenced by Cold War era Poland, hence the setting, where there are a lot of themes of kind of collectivism versus individualism. And as you progress through the game, it narrows in more on those themes. At the start, it's very broad. It is just, oh, you're going around extracting these people. And as they said, once you get 5-10 hours into the game, it narrows down on a specific point. So I'm interested to see how all of that plays out and how these themes develop, because you don't really get that kind of thing where it's so like this is a Polish game through and through, and that aspect of it I'm really interested in like diving more into.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah, when you think of Polish games, you kind of think of The Witcher, which obviously isn't about Poland.
Yeah.
I don't think it's based on a true story.
Maybe I need to brush up on my Polish history.
But that sounds really cool. And the game comes out on the 5th of September for pretty much everything, even Switch 2, apparently.
Even Switch 2. Check out Nintendo running new games.
Never thought I'd see the day.
Who would have seen it coming? Look at them.
Not me.
Radio Times does gaming.
What do you think at home? You're going to give this one a look? Let us know in the comments below.